So Zelda Mobile's happening. We know that Animal Crossing Mobile's happening. We can speculate on that in a second. But I thought we'd take a few minutes, and maybe you can help us out in the comments, and talk about maybe what we think a Zelda mobile game can look like based on what we've seen from them so far. So looking at Nintendo's mobile stuff so far, it's safe to assume that Zelda Mobile will be a vertical game, right? It won't be, oh, there's my Star Wars wallpaper. It won't be one of those games that you play like this because nothing they've made has looked like that so far.
Yeah, I think they are leaning into the whole, like, you can play it one-handed.
They love that, yeah. So, I mean, we saw it with Fire Emblem, Miitomo, Pokemon Go, Mario Run, which was a platforming game we all questioned, like, how could that work? And it does, right? It works really well. The other thing I think is that we haven't really seen them do anything that feels like a massive departure in art direction from what they're doing already, but they haven't really just locked into pixel art for anything. So when you think Zelda Mobile, you're probably thinking like, oh, maybe it'll look like Link to the Past or Link Between Worlds. I think it's going to have a brand new art style. But we thought we'd mock up real quick of some directions I kind of don't want it to go in. So let's look right here.
Okay.
If you've got an Android phone, you've probably been like, pirating Super Nintendo games on it for years. Weird thing about Zelda games is that we've never seen them in this aspect ratio. Never. So I mocked up what this would look like with overlay control buttons. I hate this. I don't want this to happen. On the right over here, we've got sort of like Zelda 2 auto run dungeon temple crawl type thing with swipe controls. I don't really want to see that happen either. I think the latter kind of makes a little bit more sense here. It could, but I don't really think it's necessarily going to happen. Now, Zelda's been in a bunch of different art styles since its inception in the 80s, so let's take a look at some other stuff. One thing that I really liked about Mario Run, a lot of people don't really talk about it, but it was sort of a side option here. When you weren't playing the main campaign, you could build out the Mushroom Kingdom. So this is kind of something I want to see return for Zelda. The towns, the top-down perspective, here we have the art direction from Link's Awakening DX, could be really cool. You go in and you fight bad guys and beat dungeons and do whatever you do.
Man,
and
that sounds great. Like, I would love that. I'm not really big into city building, like tappy-clicky Farmville stuff, but if it's using a really familiar art style, like that just makes me happy to look at. Like I want that as a wallpaper now.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think for something like this, I wouldn't want this to be the main game, but I would want it to be something that sort of you can dabble with on the side when you need some breaks, right? Now, obviously, with touch controls, you're limited immediately. And I think that's why we're so happy we're playing Switch right now, because it's got a touch screen, but it's got those dedicated buttons on the side, and you can break off the controllers and do all that fun stuff. But we've seen Zelda in a couple different art directions in the last few years. One of my favorite is actually Four Swords, which we saw on the GBA, we saw on the GameCube with 4-player multiplayer with link cables and GBAs. So let's take a look at that. And on the right, we've got Hyrule Warriors. Now I think each of these could work in their own way. Four Swords with swipe controls, and Hyrule Warriors, which is a Musou-style game. You're fighting waves after waves, hordes of enemies. I think could work very simply with swipe controls, sort of the way something like Infinity Blade worked, but with huge crowds.
Yeah, that seems really
think
cool.
about that.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of maybe you're having a balance between something that is like a town builder.
Right.
But there's side missions where you gotta fight a bunch of enemies doing swipey stuff, or maybe there's weird block puzzles, or yeah, we had a few people in the chat. Rydizzle said Zelda Candy Crush.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You know, that seems like a pretty, like rupees just being swiped around.
Yeah, it's possible. I have a feeling
Zora dating sim. I don't know how I feel.
I have a feeling they're going to go with something a little non-traditional, because we thought Mario Run would be an endless runner, and it wasn't. It was level-based. And we thought, Pokemon Go, or when we first heard about a Pokemon mobile game, we all thought like,
it's just going to be Pokemon Pocket.
And it wasn't, right? It was a completely different thing. So my last option here, given the success of Pokemon Go, and given the fact that Breath of the Wild is so heavy on discovery and finding things, I kind of want Zelda Go, where you have to find shrines in the real world. Now, I don't know exactly what that looks like. I mocked this up very quickly. It's been a long week. But work with me here, because I have a feeling that something like this could be really cool. Finding Zelda treasures in the world, finding Zelda enemies in the world, finding rupees, finding like Triforce pieces would be the big rare ones, right? Like finding the Master Sword. Like I look at the way someone like Andrew Goldfarb, who's on vacation or on business trip in Tokyo right now, he's finding Pokemon he can't find here.
Sure.
He's still playing this game years later. So I don't know. Let us know what you think.
What's interesting is like Pokemon is so much about gotta catch them all. When I think about how I played Breath of the Wild and like going to look for shrines, it was always kind of more, I want to upgrade what I've got.
Yeah.
But if you're not actually, like, what's the benefit of finding shrines in the real world if you're not actually, maybe what if it actually led you to real treasure?
I mean, maybe
what if they made an app that led you to real treasures.
I think like real.
Find a real gold sword.
I don't think so.
They could put real swords in the world.
Okay.
Go get them.
Is this tangent finished? I think what they can do at the best is they'll give you new tunics and stuff like that for your in-game avatar, or they'll give you fake little meters to fill up to be like, you leveled up your Master Sword.
Yeah.
But all those things are options. I'm really into the fact that this is happening. Also, this is the first Zelda game, as we know of, unless a new one gets announced at E3, that we'll be playing post Breath of the Wild, which completely reinvented Zelda games.
By that logic, no matter what they do, they're
screwed.
Kind of going to suck by
They're
comparison.
kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was just practicing French kissing my Yoshis. After this video, you should watch our video about why Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda this century. And after that, you should watch our video about why some of the older Zeldas might have been doing some stuff better. Up at noon, Thursdays, noon, IGN.